So hello everyone. Today we'll be discussing about the normal lateralis of the skull. So this is the normal lateralis aspect of the human skull which you see here. Alright. Now let's focus on the bones which constitute the normal lateralis. Okay. So here will be the frontal bone, the parietal bone, the occipital bone, the temporal bone, the sphenoid bone, the maxilla, the mandible, the zygomatic bone, and the nasal bone. Alright, so to be specific, we'll have the lateral part of the frontal and parietal bones, okay, the lateral part of the occipital bone, the squamous and mastoid part of the temporal bone, the greater wing of sphenoid, okay, the lateral part of the zygomatic bone, the lateral aspect of the mandible, and the maxilla and the nasal bone as well. Right, so now let's discuss about the features of the normal lateralis. Now let's discuss about the temporal lines. Okay, so there are two temporal lines. See, superiorly we have the superior temporal line. Okay, see, this is the superior temporal line, and below to it, almost running parallel to the superior temporal line, will be the inferior temporal line. Okay, so this is the superior temporal line and this is the inferior temporal line. Now they both can be seen to converge near the frontozygomatic suture, but here, okay, and now it can be traced backward and posteriorly we can see them diverge. Alright, now if we trace the superior temporal line, it almost fades away when running posteriorly, okay, and but the inferior temporal line, okay, now it slightly diverges away from the superior temporal line and runs backward, okay, it runs forward and downward to end up above the external acoustic meatus. Okay, it doesn't end up though, I will talk about it later. So it runs above the external acoustic meatus, alright, in the form of the suprameatal crest. Okay, now here is a crest like thing which you can see it clearly, I guess. See, this crest is called a suprameatal crest. Okay, so it runs above the suprameatal crest because it's oriented posterior superiorly from the external acoustic meatus. Alright, now this suprameatal crest is very important, which I will discuss later. Okay, now, so I told you that the inferior temporal line turns downwards and forwards and becomes continuous with the suprameatal crest, okay, on the squamous temporal bone near its junction. So this is the squamous part of the temporal bone, okay, and this is the mastoid part of the temporal bone. So it just gets continuous with it, okay, near the junction. Now this crest is continuous anteriorly with the posterior root of the zygomatic arc. Okay, so this is the zygomatic arc which you see here, and it has one anterior root. See, this is the anterior root which I am tracing. This is the anterior root and this is the posterior root. Anterior root and the posterior root. Okay, so it becomes continuous with the posterior root anteriorly with the zygomatic arc. So now if we trace it still anteriorly, so it is continuous as the superior border of the zygomatic arc. Okay, now if we trace it more, it runs forward as the the frontal process of the zygomatic bone, okay, and just meets up here at the frontozygomatic suture. Okay, so you can see that the inferior temporal line is almost a continuous line. Okay, now starting from the frontozygomatic suture, then running upward, above, backward, then again coming forward, okay, again running forward above the external acoustic meatus as the suprameatal crest, then again joining in the superior border of the zygomatic arc. Okay, so this almost forms a continuous line as of the inferior temporal line. So unlike the superior temporal line which just fades away posteriorly, the inferior temporal line is more or less a continuous line. Okay, now you must remember that the superior temporal line and the inferior temporal line converge anteriorly near this frontozygomatic suture. Okay, and from this point of convergence they start to diverge when traced backwards. Now talking about the superior temporal line, okay, the superior temporal line gives attachment to the, see, this is the superior temporal line, okay, and this is the inferior temporal line. So the superior temporal line gives attachment to the gallia aponeurotica and the temporal fascia, okay, so this you must remember. Now coming to the zygomatic arc or the zygoma, now it is a horizontal bar on the side of the head, okay. Now you can palpate your cheek and you can appreciate the prominence which you feel, okay, so that is the zygomatic arc. Now it lies in front of the ear, okay, a little above the tragus, okay. Now what's the tragus? A tragus is actually a prominence on the inner side of the external ear, okay, in front of and part by closing the passage to organs of the hearing, okay. Now it's formed by the temporal part of the zygomatic bone, I mean the temporal process of the zygomatic bone in the anterior 1/3. So this is the anterior 1/3 division. See, this is actually the temporozygomatic suture, okay. So in the anterior 1/3 of it, it's formed by the zygomatic, I mean the temporal process of the zygomatic bone, okay, and the rest of it is formed by the zygomatic process of the temporal bone in the posterior 2/3, okay. Now this is called the zygomatico-temporal suture, which you observe here, okay. I hope it's visible, this suture over here, okay. This is the zygomatico-temporal suture. Now it crosses the arc obliquely downwards and backwards, okay. Now it's visible, I guess. Alright, now if we see this aspect of a normal after this, I guess this is also cleared. See, this is the zygomatico-temporal suture, alright. Now above the zygomatic arc, okay, so this area is the temporal fossa, which is filled by the temporalis muscle, okay. Now attached to the lower margin of the zygomatic arc is the masseter muscle. So this is the zygomatic arc. Now it has a lower margin and upper margin, okay. So an outer surface and an inner surface, alright. Now it has a posterior root, the anterior root and the posterior root, alright. So these were some features about the zygomatic arc. So above the zygomatic arc is the temporal fossa, which is filled by the temporalis muscle, okay. Now attached to the lower margin of it is the masseter muscle, okay. Now temporalis and masseter are two important group of muscle, okay. Now it may be felt by clenching your teeth. Now when you clench your teeth, you may just appreciate the power of these two muscles, which helps in different biting and chewing type of process of your mouth, alright. Now this zygomatic arc also demarcates the separation of the temporal fossa and the inferior temporal fossa. So this is the inferior temporal fossa which you see here, okay, and this is the temporal fossa. Now the zygomatic arc is separated from the side of the skull by a gap which is deeper in front than behind, okay. Now the gap between the zygomatic arc and this temporal fossa is almost filled up with the tendon of temporalis muscle, okay. The deep temporal nerve and vessels also pass through it, alright. Now talking about the upper border of the zygomatic arc, the anterior most part of it is called the jugal point, okay, and the posterior end of the zygomatic arc is bifurcated into two roots, which is the anterior root and the posterior root, okay. Now these two roots help it to be attached with the squamous temporal, okay. Now if we look inferiorly, see, between the anterior and the posterior roots, here a bony elevation is present, which is called the articular tubercle, okay. So this is the articular tubercle of the root of the zygoma, okay. Now it lies on the lower border. Now the anterior root passes medially in front, okay, of the articular fossa. So this is the articular fossa with which the condyloid process of mandible will articulate, okay. And this is the posterior root. So the anterior root passes medially in front of the articular fossa, while the posterior root passes backward along the lateral margin of the mandibular or articular fossa, then above the external acoustic meatus to become continuous with the supramastoid crest, okay. Then it becomes continuous with the supramastoid crest. Alright. Now two projections are visible in relation to these roots. So okay, one was the articular tubercle, okay, at its lower border. Now another tubercle is visible just behind the mandibular or articular fossa, okay, over here. See, over here, I think if I zoom it will be more clear, okay. So this tubercle over here, this is called the postglenoid tubercle, okay, the postglenoid tubercle. Now let's discuss about the external acoustic meatus. So this is the external acoustic meatus which you see here. Now the external acoustic meatus opens just below the posterior root of the zygoma, okay. So this is the posterior root of the zygoma, and this is the anterior root, okay. This is the anterior root and this is the posterior root. So it opens just below the posterior root of the zygoma. Now its anterior, inferior and the lower part of the posterior margin are found by the tympanic plate, okay. So it is found by the tympanic plate, and the posterior superior margin is found by the squamous temporal bone. Now the margins are roughened for the attachment of the articular cartilages, okay. Now if you look posterior superiorly to this meatus, okay, over here. Now posterior superiorly to this meatus is present a small depression, okay. So here posterior superiorly to this meatus, here will be a depression, okay. Now this depression is called the suprameatal triangle, okay, or the triangle of Makiwan, okay, the suprameatal triangle or the triangle of the Makiwan. Now this is one of the most important anatomical landmark seen in the norma lateralis, okay. Now it is bounded above by the suprameatal crest, okay, which I discussed before, the suprameatal crest, in front by the posterior superior margin of the external meatus, and behind by the vertical tangent to the posterior margin of the meatus, okay. So if I draw a vertical tangent, okay, now this area will be referred to as the suprameatal triangle, okay. Now sometimes anterior inferiorly to the anterior inferior margin of the triangle, okay, over here. So a spine may be present sometimes, okay, it's not present over here, okay. Now that spine is called the suprameatal spine, okay, it's present somewhere around here, the anterior inferior border of the triangle. Now the triangle forms the lateral wall of the tympanic or the mastoid antrum, okay. So it forms the lateral wall of the tympanic or mastoid antrum. Now coming to the external acoustic meatus, okay. Now the center of the external acoustic meatus is called the articular point, okay. The center is referred to as the articular point. Now through this articular point passes one important line known as the reed space line, okay. Now the reed space line is actually a horizontal line joining the infraorbital margin, okay, the infraorbital margin to the auricular point, okay. So it is the horizontal line. So this is the reed space line. Now let's discuss about the mastoid part of the temporal bone, okay. Now the mastoid part of the temporal bone lies just behind the external acoustic meatus, okay. So this is the mastoid part of the temporal bone which you see here, okay, this projection, okay. Now it is continuous anterosuperiorly with the squamous temporal bone. So this is a squamous temporal bone and it is continuous anterosuperiorly with it. Okay. Now a partially obliterated squamomastoid suture, okay, which will demarcate the separation of the squamous part and the mastoid part of the temporal bone may be present, okay, in front of and parallel to the roughened area for muscular insertion. Okay, it's not present here, I guess. Okay, a faint line is seen. Now the mastoid temporal bone articulates posterior-superiorly, okay, posterior-superiorly with the posterior-inferior part of the parietal bone, okay. So this is the parietal bone and this is its posterior-inferior part. So the mastoid part in its posterior-superior aspect is in relation with the posterior-inferior part of the parietal bone, okay. So and they meet forming a suture which is called the parieto-mastoid suture. All right, so this is the parieto-mastoid suture, this horizontal parieto-mastoid suture. Now posteriorly the mastoid process is in relation with the squamous occipital bone at the occipito-mastoid suture. So this is the occipito-mastoid suture, okay. Now these two sutures along with the lateral part of the lambdoid suture, okay, the lateral end of the lambdoid suture, they meet each other at this point which is called the asterion, okay. So this is called the asterion. Alright, now the asterion is the point where the parieto-mastoid suture, the occipito-mastoid suture and the lambdoid suture will meet. In infants, the asterion is the site of posterolateral or mastoid fontanelle which closes by 1 year, okay. Now the mastoid process is breast-like projection, okay. See, it is a breast-like projection from the lower part of the mastoid temporal bone posterior inferior to the external acoustic meatus, okay. So it's present on either side, see, okay. These two are the mastoid process of the temporal bone, okay. Now it appears during the second year of life, okay. It develops at 2 years. Now let me discuss about the attachments which is in relation with the mastoid process from before backwards, I mean anterior posteriorly. So first we will have the sternocleidomastoid muscle, then the splenius capitis, then the longissimus capitis. I am repeating once again, the sternocleidomastoid muscle, the splenius capitis and the longissimus capitis. Now there is a notch deep to the mastoid process over here, okay. I hope you can appreciate this notch. See this notch, okay. Now this is due to the posterior belly of digastric. This is due to the attachment of the posterior belly of the digastric muscle. Now next to the notch there is a groove, okay. Now this groove will lodge the occipital artery. Now deep to the mastoid process, here you can see the styloid process, okay. Now before going to the styloid process, let me discuss about the mastoid foramen, okay. Now the mastoid foramen is generally observed near the occipito-mastoid suture, okay. Over here, see, this is the mastoid process. It was not clearly seen in this side, so I referred to this side, okay. I think the bone has fused over here, so never mind. So this is the mastoid foramen, alright. Now the mastoid foramen will lead to the passage of some important structures, okay. So now first of all it opens deep inside to the sigmoid sulcus, okay. Now it leads to the passage of emissary vein which will connect posterior auricular vein with sigmoid sulcus, okay. It will lead to the passage of the emissary vein which will connect posterior auricular vein with the sigmoid sulcus. Now it will also lead to the passage of meningeal branch of occipital artery, okay, the meningeal branch of occipital artery. So this mastoid foramen is very important, alright. So now we will discuss about the styloid process, okay. Now the word styloid, okay, in Latin it means pen, okay. Now it is a needle-like projection its long thin projection from the temporal bone. Okay, its projection from the temporal bone. Now it's seen clearly in the normal bezalis view, but we will study it in the normal lateralis as well. Okay, as it's visible. Now it is situated anteromedial to the mastoid process. So this is the mastoid process, and the styloid process is situated anteromedial to it. Okay, so it is directed downwards, forwards, and slightly medially. See, I am representing the styloid process with this paper fold as the styloid process was broken of the skull. Okay, both of it are broken. So I am representing the styloid process with this paper fold. Please try to cooperate. Alright. Now it is directed downwards, forwards, and medially, and slightly medially. Downwards, forwards, and slightly medially. So this is the direction of styloid process, which you must remember: downwards, forwards, and slightly medially. Now its base is partially ensheathed by the tympanic plate. Okay, this is the tympanic plate, and the base is slightly ensheathed with it. Now the apex or tip of the styloid process, okay, which is at my thumb, so it is usually hidden from view by the posterior border of the ramus of the mandible. So this is the ramus of the mandible. Okay, this is its posterior border, so it's hidden by it. Okay, alright. Now the styloid process has some important attachments. Now it gives attachment to two ligaments, the stylomandibular and the stylohyoid. Okay, it gives attachment to two ligaments, the stylomandibular and the stylohyoid, and it gives attachment to three muscles. Okay, stylohyoid, styloglossus, and stylopharyngeus. Stylohyoid means the styloid process is in relation with the hyoid bone. Styloglossus, glossus means it's in relation to the tongue, and stylopharyngeus, which means it's in relation with the pharynx. Okay, so these three muscles are attached to the styloid process. Now the styloid process as a whole, along with these three muscles, are referred to as the styloid apparatus. Okay, now just aside to the styloid process, we have the stylomastoid foramen, which you see on either side of the skull. See, this is the stylomastoid foramen, which is seen here. Okay, now the stylomastoid foramen gives passage to the facial nerve. Okay, so it gives passage to the facial nerve. Alright, now let's discuss about the temporal fossa. Okay, now when we see the temporal fossa, okay, you may appreciate that in the floor of it, the anterior part of the floor is generally crossed by an H-shaped suture. See, I hope it's visible. It's very prominent if you have a skull. Okay, if you see a skull clearly, see, this H-shaped suture is very prominent. Okay, in the floor of the temporal fossa. Now this is the point, this is the location where the frontal, the parietal, the greater wing of sphenoid, and the temporal, the squamous temporal adjoin each other. Okay, now they adjoin each other at this site. Okay, now this area is generally termed as the pterion. Okay, this is called the pterion. Now this is an important craniometric point. Now it lies 4 centimeter above the midpoint of the zygomatic arc. Okay, it lies 4 centimeter above the midpoint of it, of the zygomatic arc, and 2.5 centimeter behind the frontozygomatic suture. So this is the frontozygomatic suture, and it lies 2.5 centimeter behind it. Now what you need to remember is that deep to the pterion lies some important structure. Okay, now deep to the pterion will lie the middle meningeal vein, the anterior division of the middle meningeal artery, the stem of the lateral sulcus of the brain. Okay, that's why it's also referred to as the Sylvian point. Okay, so I'm repeating again. Now deep to it will lie three important structures. Okay, the middle meningeal vein, the anterior division of middle meningeal artery, and the stem of the lateral sulcus. Okay, now this site is very much, it's having a clinical importance. Okay, because pterion is generally the site of triphaning. okay, by the neurosurgeons. So it's usually done to relieve the raised intracranial pressure, which is secondary to the extradural hemorrhage. Okay. Now on the temporal surface of the zygomatic bone, which forms the anterior wall of the temporal fossa, there is the zygomatico-temporal foramen. Okay, the zygomatico-temporal foramen. Now let's discuss about the attachments. Now the temporal fascia is attached to the superior temporal line. Okay, this is the superior temporal line. Now it's attached to the superior temporal line and to the area between the two temporal lines. Okay, between the superior and inferior temporal lines. Now inferiorly it is attached to the outer and inner lips of the upper border of the zygomatic arc. Okay, so this is the zygomatic arc and this is its upper border. Now to its to its outer and inner lips, the temporal fascia is attached. Okay. Now the temporalis muscle arises from the whole of the temporal fossa except the part formed by the zygomatic bone. Now beneath the muscle there lie the deep temporal vessels and nerves. The middle temporal vessels produce vascular markings. Okay, the middle temporal vessels will produce vascular markings on the temporal bone just above the external acoustic meatus. Okay, now if you look at the skull clearly, here will be some vascular markings produced by the middle temporal vessels. Now the medial surface and the lower border. Okay, the medial surface, see, this is the medial surface of the zygomatic arc, and the lower border of the zygomatic arc will give origin to the masseter muscle. Okay, the masseter muscle. Alright, now the tendon of temporalis muscle will fill the gap deep to the zygomatic arc. Okay, and it finally gets attached to the coronoid process of the mandible. Okay, the tendons of temporalis muscle. So that you must note. Now, the lateral ligament of the temporomandibular joint is attached to the tubercle, this articular tubercle between the two roots of the zygoma. Okay. Now, I told you already about the attachments of the mastoid process. Alright. Now, once more recapping about the gap between the zygomatic arc and the side of the skull transmits tendon of temporalis muscle, deep temporal vessels and nerves. Let's discuss about the structures passing through the foramina. Okay. Now the tympanomastoid fissure on the anterior aspect of the base, okay, of the mastoid process transmits the auricular branch of the vagus nerve. Alright. Now the mastoid foramen, okay, this over here was fused. So the mastoid foramen transmits emissary vein connecting the sigmoid sinus, okay, with the posterior auricular vein, a meningeal branch of the occipital artery. Okay. Now the zygomatico-temporal foramen, okay, present on the temporal side of the zygomatic bone, okay, it transmits the nerve of the same name and a minute artery of the same name. Okay. So that was about today. Hope you understood well. Thanks for watching.